The babysitter's shoes were still by the door when the Henderson family returned home at 11:47 p.m. on March 15, 2009. Her iPhone sat charging on the kitchen counter. Her car keys lay next to her psychology textbook on the dining room table. Emma Carter's purse remained exactly where she'd left it, wallet intact with $43 cash, and her University of Texas student ID clearly visible through the clear plastic window. But Emma was gone. The 3 children she'd been watching were sound asleep in their beds. The house was locked from the inside, and every window remained latched tight against the mild Austin spring evening. 16-year-old Emma Carter had simply vanished from the Henderson family's suburban home on Maple Ridge Drive, leaving behind every possession that mattered to a teenage girl, except her life. What happened in the next 12 years would expose a web of deception, hidden cameras, and a neighbor's obsession that had been festering in plain sight for over a decade. The truth about Emma's disappearance would ultimately be revealed not through traditional detective work, but through a construction accident that unearthed evidence so disturbing that it would change how Austin families chose their babysitters forever. If you want to understand how a 16-year-old girl can disappear from a locked house while children sleep safely in their beds, make sure you're subscribed, because this case will challenge everything you think you know about the people living next door. Dr. Sarah Henderson had been looking forward to her first date night with her husband Mike in 3 months. The pediatric surgeon had been working 70-hour weeks at Dell Children's Medical Center, and March 15th represented the first Saturday evening in recent memory when she wasn't on call or dealing with a medical emergency that required her immediate attention. Emma Carter had been babysitting for the Henderson family since the previous summer, recommended by Sarah's colleague, whose daughter attended the same high school. The University of Texas freshman was studying child psychology and needed the extra income to supplement her scholarship money. Emma's references were impeccable. Her background check came back clean. And most importantly, 8-year-old Madison, 6-year-old Connor, and 4-year-old Sophie Henderson genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. The Henderson house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac in the prestigious Westlake Hills neighborhood, surrounded by similar 2-story colonial homes worth well over $500,000 each. The area was known for its safety, low crime rates, and the kind of community involvement that made parents comfortable leaving their children with teenage babysitters. Emma arrived at 6:30 p.m. carrying her usual overnight bag filled with textbooks, snacks, and the portable DVD player she used to keep the children entertained after dinner. Sarah showed her the emergency contact numbers written in her careful physician's handwriting, reviewed the bedtime routines for each child, and explained that she and Mike would be home by 11:30 p.m. after dinner at the new Italian restaurant downtown. The evening progressed exactly as planned. Emma fed the children dinner, supervised their baths, and had them all tucked into bed by 8:45 p.m., with their respective bedtime stories read, and nightlights glowing softly in each room. By 9 p.m., the house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the central air conditioning and the distant sound of Emma's DVD player as she settled in the living room to study while keeping an ear out for any movement from upstairs. What happened between 9 p.m. and 11:47 p.m. would become the focus of one of Austin's most baffling missing person investigations, a case that would consume Detective Ray Morrison's career and haunt the Henderson family for over a decade. Sarah and Mike Henderson's date night ended abruptly in the restaurant parking lot when Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message that made her stomach drop. "Need to talk to you about Emma. Something's not right. Detective Morrison, Austin PD." The drive home took 17 minutes that felt like hours. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities while Mike pressed the accelerator harder than he normally would, both parents trying to prepare themselves for whatever crisis awaited them. Had one of the children been hurt? Had there been an accident? Had Emma encountered some kind of emergency that required police involvement? The scene that greeted them at 2847 Maple Ridge Drive was surreal in its apparent normalcy. Detective Morrison's unmarked sedan sat in their driveway alongside 2 patrol cars, their red and blue lights casting eerie shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn that Mike had spent his weekend maintaining. The house itself appeared undisturbed, its windows still glowing with the warm interior lighting that Sarah had programmed to make their home feel welcoming. Detective Morrison met them at the front door, his 23 years of experience with the Austin Police Department evident in the careful way he chose his words. The children were fine, he assured them immediately, all 3 still sleeping soundly in their beds exactly as Emma had left them. The house showed no signs of forced entry, no evidence of struggle or violence, and no indication that anything unusual had occurred. But Emma Carter was nowhere to be found. Morrison led the Hendersons through their own home, pointing out the evidence that had made Emma's disappearance so puzzling to the officers who'd been searching for over an hour. Her belongings remained exactly where she'd placed them. Textbooks spread across the dining room table with highlighted passages about child development theories. Her cell phone plugged into the kitchen charger with the battery at 100%, and her car keys resting beside the fruit bowl that Sarah had filled that morning. More disturbing was the evidence of Emma's recent presence throughout the house. A half-eaten bowl of ice cream sat melting on the coffee table next to the DVD player, which was still running the psychology documentary she'd been watching. The living room showed clear signs of study session, highlighters uncapped, notebook pages covered with Emma's neat handwriting, and a cup of tea still warm to the touch. The front door had been locked with both the deadbolt and chain security lock engaged from the inside when officers arrived. The back door remained secured with its automatic lock system that could only be disengaged from within the house. Every window was latched tight, their security sensors showing no history of being opened that evening. Emma Carter had simply vanished from a locked house, leaving behind every possession that connected her to the outside world. The initial investigation revealed details that made Emma's disappearance even more perplexing. The security system that monitored the Henderson home showed no record of doors or windows being opened after Sarah and Mike's departure at 6:45 p.m. The motion sensors in the main hallway had detected Emma's movement between the kitchen and living room until approximately 9:30 p.m., then recorded nothing until the police arrived. Detective Morrison interviewed the children individually, using techniques designed to extract information from young witnesses without traumatizing them further. Madison, the 8-year-old, remembered Emma reading her favorite book about a princess who saves her kingdom through clever problem-solving. Connor, 6 years old, described how Emma had helped him brush his teeth and reminded him to use the bathroom before bed. 4-year-old Sophie could only remember Emma singing the lullaby that always helped her fall asleep. None of the children had heard any unusual sounds during the night. No raised voices, no doors slamming, no indication that anything had disturbed the peaceful bedtime routine that Emma had established with military precision. The neighbor interviews began at midnight and continued through the early morning hours of March 16th. The Westlake Hills neighborhood was home to families who paid attention to their surroundings, people who noticed unfamiliar vehicles and kept mental notes about unusual activity that might affect property values or community safety. Mrs. Eleanor Walsh, who lived directly across from the Hendersons, reported seeing Emma's silver Honda Civic in the driveway when she'd taken her dog out for his final walk at 10:30 p.m. The porch light had been on. The interior light suggested normal evening activity, and nothing had appeared out of the ordinary. The Kowalski family, whose backyard bordered the Henderson property, had been entertaining dinner guests until nearly midnight. Their outdoor patio provided a clear view of the Henderson house, and multiple witnesses confirmed that they'd noticed no unusual activity, no strange vehicles, and no indication that anything was amiss next door. Most significantly, no one had seen Emma leave the house. The search of the Henderson property began at dawn on March 16th with K-9 units, ground-penetrating radar, and forensic specialists who treated Emma's disappearance as a potential homicide despite the lack of evidence suggesting violence. The dogs detected Emma's scent throughout the house but lost the trail at the front door, as if she'd simply stepped outside and been lifted into the air. The basement received particular attention, with investigators examining every corner of the finished recreation room where the Henderson children played video games and watched movies. The concrete walls showed no signs of recent disturbance, the floor revealed no evidence of digging or concealment, and infrared imaging detected no anomalies beneath the surface. The attic search proved equally fruitless. The space above the Henderson home was accessible only through a pull-down ladder in the hallway closet, and the dust patterns on the floor showed no evidence of recent human presence. Investigators photographed every inch of the space, looking for hiding places or evidence that Emma might have been concealed there, but found only the normal accumulation of holiday decorations and storage boxes. By March 18th, the investigation had expanded beyond the Henderson property to include the entire Westlake Hills neighborhood. Volunteers from the community joined law enforcement officers in systematic searches of parks, wooded areas, and construction sites within a 5-mile radius of Maple Ridge Drive. Emma's parents, David and Patricia Carter, arrived from their home in Dallas on March 17th to coordinate with police and media outlets. David, an insurance investigator, applied his professional skills to analyzing every detail of the case, creating timelines and evidence charts that covered the walls of their hotel room. Patricia, a high school counselor, focused on Emma's emotional state and social relationships, trying to identify any factors that might have motivated her to leave voluntarily. But both parents knew that Emma wouldn't have abandoned her responsibilities or left the Henderson children unprotected. Her commitment to babysitting wasn't just about money. Emma genuinely cared about the welfare of children and took pride in being someone that families could trust with their most precious possessions. The media attention began locally, but quickly expanded to national coverage as the impossible nature of Emma's disappearance captured public imagination. News crews set up semi-permanent positions on Maple Ridge Drive, their satellite trucks and camera equipment transforming the quiet suburban street into a circus that made normal life impossible for residents. The Henderson family found themselves prisoners in their own home, unable to leave without facing dozens of reporters shouting questions about their missing babysitter. The children, confused by the attention and traumatized by the realization that Emma was gone, required counseling to help them process the situation. Sarah Henderson struggled with guilt that consumed her thoughts during every quiet moment. If they hadn't gone out to dinner, Emma would still be safe. If she'd chosen a different babysitter, some other family would be dealing with this nightmare. The what-if scenarios multiplied in her mind until sleep became impossible and her work at the hospital suffered from her inability to concentrate. Detective Morrison's investigation expanded to include Emma's personal life with a thoroughness that left no stone unturned. Her dormitory room at the University of Texas was searched with her parents' permission, revealing the typical possessions of a college freshman: textbooks, clothing, photographs of friends and family, and a journal that documented her adjustment to university life. Emma's journal entries painted a picture of a young woman excited about her studies, but struggling with the financial pressures of college life. She wrote about her psychology courses with enthusiasm, described her professors with respect and admiration, and expressed gratitude for the babysitting job that allowed her to earn money while gaining experience with children. The entries from the weeks preceding her disappearance showed no signs of depression, anxiety, or desire to escape her current situation. If anything, Emma seemed optimistic about her future and proud of her academic achievements during her first semester. Emma's social media profiles reflected the same positive attitude. Her Facebook page contained photos from university events, study sessions with classmates, and family gatherings during winter break. Her last post, made on March 14th, showed her studying in the campus library with the caption, "Psychology midterm tomorrow, then babysitting for my favorite kiddos, living the dream. Student life, psych major." Her text message history revealed normal conversations with friends about homework, weekend plans, and typical teenage concerns. No messages suggested that Emma was planning to disappear, running from any problems, or involved with anyone who might have wished her harm. The investigation into Emma's university connections included interviews with professors, classmates, and residence hall staff who might have observed changes in her behavior or interactions with suspicious individuals. Dr. Amanda Foster, Emma's developmental psychology professor, described her as an engaged student who asked thoughtful questions and demonstrated genuine passion for understanding how children learn and grow. Emma's roommate, Jennifer Walsh, provided detailed information about her daily routines and recent activities. Emma maintained a consistent schedule of classes, study sessions, and babysitting jobs, rarely deviating from patterns that had been established during her first semester. She didn't date regularly, didn't drink alcohol, and showed no interest in activities that might have put her in dangerous situations. The financial investigation revealed Emma's modest lifestyle and careful budgeting. Her bank account showed regular deposits from her babysitting jobs and occasional transfers from her parents to help with educational expenses. The last transaction had been a $20 ATM withdrawal on March 14th, money that was found in her wallet at the Henderson house. Emma's cell phone records became a crucial piece of evidence that both clarified and complicated the timeline of her disappearance. The phone had remained connected to the cell tower serving the Westlake Hills area until 9:47 p.m. on March 15th, when it apparently lost signal despite showing full battery power when discovered by police. The last outgoing communication was a text message sent to her roommate at 9:31 p.m. "Kids are asleep studying for psych exam. See you tomorrow." The message was typical of Emma's regular check-ins with friends and showed no signs of distress or unusual circumstances. Incoming calls and messages after 9:31 p.m. had gone unanswered, including several attempts by Jennifer to coordinate weekend plans and a call from Emma's mother at 10:15 p.m. to discuss summer course options. The phone's GPS data showed its last known location as the Henderson home address, providing no clues about where Emma might have gone after 9:47 p.m. The discovery that would ultimately solve Emma Carter's case came 12 years later through a construction accident that had nothing to do with the original investigation. On June 23, 2021, workers expanding the foundation of a house 3 blocks from the Henderson home struck something with their excavator that brought work to an immediate halt. The object, buried 4 feet beneath the surface, was a waterproof container that had preserved its contents despite more than a decade underground. Inside, investigators found Emma's University of Texas student ID, a silver bracelet that her parents immediately recognized, and most significantly, a USB drive containing video files that would expose the truth about what happened on March 15, 2009. The videos revealed that Emma hadn't disappeared from the Henderson house at all. She'd been murdered there by someone who had been watching her for months, someone who knew her schedule, her routines, and exactly when she would be alone with the children. The USB drive contained security camera footage from a sophisticated surveillance system that the killer had installed throughout the Henderson neighborhood without anyone's knowledge. Hidden cameras mounted in trees, fence posts, and utility boxes had been recording the daily activities of families for over 2 years, with particular focus on young women who worked as babysitters. The footage showed Emma arriving at the Henderson house on March 15th, going through her normal evening routine with the children, and settling down to study in the living room after everyone was asleep. At 9:43 p.m., the cameras captured movement in the Henderson backyard as a figure dressed in dark clothing approached the house using a path that avoided all the street lighting. The intruder had a key to the back door. More disturbing footage revealed that this same person had entered the Henderson house on multiple previous occasions when Emma was babysitting, moving through the rooms where she worked and played with the children while remaining completely undetected. The videos showed him collecting strands of Emma's hair from the bathroom drain, photographing her personal belongings, and even standing in the hallway outside her room while she slept during overnight babysitting assignments. The final video file on the USB drive was the most devastating. It showed Emma's murder in graphic detail, recorded by the killer as he confronted her in the Henderson living room and strangled her with a cord that he'd brought specifically for that purpose. Emma had tried to run toward the staircase where the children were sleeping, apparently hoping to protect them from whatever was happening, but the killer had caught her before she could scream or fight back effectively. The video timestamp showed that Emma died at 9:51 p.m. on March 15, 2009. The construction site where the USB drive was found sat on property owned by Martin Kowalski, the Henderson family's next-door neighbor who had been among the witnesses interviewed during the original investigation. Kowalski had expressed concern about Emma's disappearance, offered to help with search efforts, and provided emotional support to the Henderson family during the most difficult period of their lives. For 12 years, Martin Kowalski had attended every community meeting about neighborhood safety, participated in discussions about security improvements, and commiserated with other parents about the tragedy that had shaken their faith in their children's protection. Martin Kowalski had murdered Emma Carter in the house where she was protecting 3 sleeping children, then spent over a decade consoling the family whose lives he had destroyed. The arrest of Martin Kowalski on July 8, 2021, came after investigators matched his DNA to evidence recovered from Emma's clothing and the Henderson house. The 48-year-old electrical contractor had used his professional access to install surveillance equipment throughout the neighborhood, targeting homes where young women worked as babysitters and nannies. Kowalski's computer contained thousands of hours of video footage showing unsuspecting victims in their most private moments. The investigation revealed that he had been stalking multiple women simultaneously, learning their schedules and vulnerabilities while appearing to be a concerned neighbor who cared about community safety. His basement workshop contained detailed files on every target, including photographs, personal information, and maps showing their regular routes and activities. Emma's file was the most extensive, documenting her relationship with the Henderson family and predicting her behavior with accuracy that had enabled him to plan the perfect crime. The psychological evaluation performed after Kowalski's arrest revealed a sophisticated predator who had compartmentalized his criminal activities while maintaining normal relationships with family and neighbors. His ability to comfort the Henderson family while knowing exactly what had happened to Emma demonstrated a level of manipulation that chilled investigators who had worked with serial killers. The revelation that Emma had been murdered by the neighbor who offered comfort to her grieving parents destroyed what remained of the Henderson family's sense of safety and trust. Sarah Henderson required intensive therapy to process the knowledge that her children had been sleeping upstairs while Emma was killed in their living room by someone they had considered a friend. The children, now teenagers, struggled with the realization that their childhood memories of Mr. Kowalski helping them with bicycle repairs and offering popsicles during summer afternoons were connected to the murder of someone who had protected and cared for them. Detective Morrison, who had retired in 2018 without solving Emma's case, expressed both relief and profound sadness when contacted about Kowalski's arrest. The case had defined the final decade of his career and haunted his retirement as he continued searching for answers that only came through accidental discovery. The trial of Martin Kowalski lasted 6 weeks and resulted in a life sentence without possibility of parole. The evidence against him was overwhelming, including DNA matches, video confessions, and detailed documentation of his surveillance activities. Kowalski showed no remorse during the proceedings, maintaining the same calm demeanor that had fooled his neighbors for over a decade. Emma Carter's parents attended every day of the trial, finally learning the details of their daughter's final moments and the systematic stalking that had preceded her murder. The knowledge brought closure, but also opened new wounds as they realized how completely they had been deceived by someone who had pretended to share their grief. The sentencing phase included victim impact statements from dozens of families who had been unknowingly surveilled by Kowalski. Parents described the violation of learning that their most intimate family moments had been recorded and their children's activities had been documented by a predator who used friendly conversation to gather intelligence for his crimes. The Henderson family moved away from Austin 6 months after Kowalski's conviction, unable to continue living in the house where Emma had died and the neighborhood where their trust had been so completely betrayed. The children, now old enough to understand the full scope of what had happened, requested the relocation to start fresh somewhere without the constant reminder of how evil could hide behind the mask of helpful concern. The Emma Carter case led to significant changes in how Austin police investigate missing person reports and how communities approach neighborhood safety. The installation of hidden surveillance equipment became a felony offense. Background check requirements were expanded for anyone providing services to families with children, and awareness programs were developed to help parents recognize signs of predatory behavior. The case also highlighted the importance of maintaining evidence from cold cases, as technological advances and accidental discoveries can provide answers decades after crimes occur. Emma's justice came through construction work that revealed her killer's documentary evidence of his own crimes, a resolution that no investigator could have predicted in 2009. For families who employ babysitters, Emma's story serves as a reminder that danger can come from the most unexpected sources and that trust should be earned through verification rather than assumed through familiarity. The neighbor who seems most helpful and concerned may be the one with the most to hide. Emma Carter was 19 years old when she died, protecting 3 children from a killer who had been watching her for months. Her story reminds us that evil often wears the mask of kindness, and that the people we trust with our most precious possessions may be the ones we should fear the most. Justice came 12 years too late, but it came nonetheless through evidence that Martin Kowalski had buried, believing it would never be found. Emma's memory lives on in the safety measures implemented because of her case, and in the knowledge that even the most carefully planned crimes can eventually be exposed by the passage of time and the persistence of truth.